friends. Welcome to Spoilerin time. If you're looking for Cordkillers, that's our main show where we talk about the devices, the services, and the things to watch as a cord cutter. This show, we dig deep into the stuff we've been watching and get spoilery about it. And we give you plenty of warnings about that. I'm Tom Merritt. Brian Brushwood, are you ready to spoil some people?
Yeah, man, boy, it's a bit like open heart surgery, the Spoilerin thing. It's like you have to call. It's like, now Spoilerin, Stranger Things, now Spoilerin, Mr. Robot, now Spoilerin, Preacher.
Did they do that with open heart surgery? Like now cutting open?
Yeah, right? You know, they
Denver.
got a call for the nurse. We like scalpel, forceps, all that stuff.
All right. Hand me plot device.
Yeah, exactly. But so in that vein, may I?
Yes.
Starting with the movie draft.
Summer movie draft.
That was me. No, perfect. It worked. It worked.
Doctor, we don't have enough money in the Star Trek Beyond gross. We can't save him.
Man, oh man. Do you remember? Did you happen to track what the expected opening for Star Trek was?
I didn't.
So we don't know if it's necessarily underperforming.
No, it's actually met close to the expectations.
Okay.
From what I don't remember what they were, but I've seen those words written in like Variety.
It's just a opening that was not in line with what you needed. Not
in line with my expectations. Well, here's the thing that makes me feel slightly like not giving up hope yet, which is $59 million from Star Trek Beyond is still better than Ghostbusters, which is only at $86 million after 2 weeks.
Right.
And I feel like it's possible Star Trek Beyond will have a stronger second week than Ghostbusters.
Yes.
In which case, all I need to do is have Star Trek Beyond beat Ghostbusters and then have Suicide Squad just go off the charts.
Yeah.
And with Secret Life of Pets at $260 million, that's where my hope starts to fade. Is like, ooh, I don't know if Suicide Squad can pull that off.
Well, and it doesn't look like it's going to slow down. Or I mean, I assume it's got another $40 million left in the tank, roughly. It'll be really interesting. I'm excited. It really does. This entire game will be determined by how good Suicide Squad is, and let's say it is an outsized hit right at the beginning. We still don't know if it's going to make enough money in the 28 days after release.
It may come right down to the final week.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right now, if you're not realizing it, Night Attack is in first by a long way because of Secret Life of Pets with $826 million, followed by Amtrucker 681, Chainsaw Suit 643, and then DTS. We didn't make it out of fourth place.
That's surprising. But again, if I agree. If I think Beyond will edge out Ghostbusters, and all you need is for Suicide Squad to not even do as well as Secret Life of Pets. It just needs to do close enough to the same amount Secret Life of Pets does, and then you get the whole thing.
Yeah, so it's not over, but it's definitely yours to lose, I think.
We're hoping. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm definitely hoping you lose at this point. Wait, is that right? Is that what it is? All right, let's start by spoiling Stranger Things. I finally got going on it and got into episode 102, which Brian had watched last week. Made it all the way to the end, but we're only going to spoil through episode 5 because that's what you watched, Brian.
Yeah, that's as far as I remember, and I apologize. When I was watching episode 5 last night, it was the last thing I watched before I went to bed, so I'm not entirely sure how much of it is still up here. But I'll tell you this much. People give me a lot of flack for, why does Brian hate everything? So let me start by saying, universally, this is very good. It's a very good show. It's very...
Brian loves his daughters.
It's very well told.
Loves chocolate.
And it's only because it's so good that I notice things that don't sit well with me. And I'm not even saying they're bad decisions. I'm just saying, for whatever reason, I mean, Winona Ryder is acting her heart out. And every single moment of it, I don't believe it. I don't believe any of it. I don't believe maybe it's just because I have too much baggage with her previous acting stuff and the characters I perceive her to be. But it's just always seems 10% over the line, and it takes me out of it every time she starts crying.
She's got crazy eyes. And here's an interesting perspective. We rewatched Star Trek, the 2009 movie that J.J. Abrams directed. Mm-hmm. She plays Spock's mother in that movie, which none of us had remembered until she came on. We're like, whoa, that was Winona. I totally forgot that.
Right.
She does a very good job of not chewing the scenery not being overly emotional, even though she's the emotional one of his parents. And yet there's something about her eyes that still just seems kind of darting and furtive, even in that role. So I guess what I'm saying is, we know she doesn't have to be crazy lady. This role in Stranger Things is calling for her to be that. But when you add on top of that the sort of natural look that she seems to have, I think it definitely amplifies it.
Well, yes. Yes. Now, on the flip side, I'm going to do a compliment sandwich. I'm going to go back to saying good things again. That kid playing 11 is amazing.
Do you get the impression sometimes that she's like a 30-year-old playing a kid?
Well, the subtlety of her reactions is just astonishing. She's so good.
Her looks are just adult. Just like, I've seen too much.
The kids, by and large, the entire show long, have been extremely well cast. They're extremely good at acting. I'm buying all of it. The only moment
Dustin's a little shaky for me.
That's the one with no teeth, right? The missing the front teeth. Yeah. But even then, like, I know guys who are like that, so that didn't bother me. Seeing them all. I'm at the part where they fished out the body of Will and the kids turn on 11 saying, "Hey man, that's not cool. You can't say he's okay, he's safe or whatever." And then whatever. That felt a little heavy-handed to see them turning on her, because I've not seen anything that indicates these kids have any meanness in them, but they suddenly adopt being mean, and of all people, they're mean to one of their own, with this, this adopted fourth member of the team.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point.
I didn't buy that. It seems like they could be sad, but for whatever reason, the directors wanted to play it as they're mean and
really disappointed in 11 for lying to them. But yeah.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it was supposed to play as they are so grief-stricken that their hopes have been dashed that they take it out on 11, I guess.
Yeah, that again, all of that just. It didn't feel right to me, and maybe there's a reason for it down the road. But continuing to enjoy it, it's really, really good. I can't wait to talk about the rest of it.
Yeah, the things that I will mention, having seen the rest of it that aren't spoilery, or not spoilery beyond episode 5, I am impressed all the way through. The Americans does this well, too, for a period piece. Not every single thing in every place is 80s, and that makes it feel more real to me.
Yes.
Sometimes you watch these movies and you're like, they went back to the 50s and every single thing is from 1955. And you're like, wait, what happened to the old stuff? Like, what about the fact that they had some things in 53 or 47 or 32? And they do a good job in that makes it work for me, is like, this is the way I remember the world looking in 1983. Because if you look in Winona Ryder's house, that stuff is very 70s because she can't afford new stuff for the most part. And in fact, she has an old on-the-wall AT and Bell, Ma Bell telephone that she replaces with an 80s, remote cordless telephone that is really expensive.
Right.
And that's the first time you see something kind of contrast that looks, and it makes that old cordless phone look new in her apartment or her house.
Yeah. Well, and there's a psychological bias called the curse of knowledge, where it's like, once you know a thing, you can't see things from the perspective of somebody who doesn't know it. And all of us have the curse of knowledge. We know what it's like to be in a hyper-connected cell phone bearing smartphone, Twitterverse universe. They don't have that. And as a result, you get lost. Like, to us, to project back to 1983 is a strange, haunting, isolated experience. It's like a type of food is suddenly not available to us, and all you can think about is like, man, I just wish I had that food. But nobody there feels that is weird or does. Everybody there in 1983 feels very connected to each other, more connected than ever. And as a result, I don't know. It's like it does a good job of making you not notice the 1980s-ness, because they most certainly are not noticing the 1980s-ness.
Right. And I think that's why it takes me back more, is they're not, and there's what is the show that's going back to the 80s now, the comedy. The point of that is to throw Rubik's Cubes in your face every moment. And I get that. They're not trying to bring you on such a nostalgia trip. This really does a nostalgia trip for me. And that, I think, informs the wider story even better. Let's move on to Mr. Robot, episode 3 of season 2, which is, I don't know. Well, how would you describe this episode? Because I feel like it's very different.
Dark. dark.
It's very dark.
Can I confess something?
It's introspective, I
I
guess.
have kind of been in a funk all day, and I think part of it is the 3-hour rock block I had last night of watching Mr. Robot and that episode of Preacher. It was just so heavy and dark. Everything was. Let's play a game. It's called Name One Moment You Felt Joy During Mr. Robot when you watched it.
Yeah, the closest I could think is that when he got on Adderall, and I'm sitting there actually feeling bad, not good, while he feels joy, going like, yeah, but that ain't real, and you're going to come down, and it's going to be bad.
Yeah, right? And then you have one of my favorite of the hacker characters that I was most interested to hear his backstory, turns up dead. And even, I'm fascinated how that guy left the office and now joined Mr. Robot. Like, I want to know his backstory, but his backstory is him literally being insane, sitting there with his dialysis machine, talking to nobody, to his dead wife. I mean, it's like I'm sad. I'm sad for what's her name, his childhood friend, cozying up with Evil Corp. I'm everything about this episode made me sad, and I haven't gotten over it. I can't even be happy seeing Christian Slater because he knows he's unwanted and he's just too stubborn to leave. I mean,
I guess the only thing was seeing the origin of F Society unveiled in the present, right?
Yeah.
So having the FBI expert come across that and recognize it and be like, because part of the I'm sitting there thinking like, really? Nobody noticed that? But I guess not, because that stuff happens and people make jokes and it's not real.
Yeah.
So that was progress in the story, but it wasn't just the lack of joy. It was also like, it wasn't a boring episode, but we did not advance any stories.
Yes.
Except for the FBI investigation.
And this is me expressing just a little bit of worry. And by the way, I do like this FBI chick. She's really interesting. Unfortunately, we've seen delightful 21st century vignettes of how alone she feels. Alexa is her roommate basically, and anyway, I am worried because this is a significant season because Sam Esmail is directing all the episodes. Now, he wrote a whole bunch of the first ones, and I assume he directed at least one or some of them. But having somebody having 100% control, sometimes it works real great, and sometimes you think, oh, I really wished you had gone back to compromising and arguing with other talented people so that
sharpening your knives against the opinions of others.
Yeah. So anyway,
I'm not worried yet. I'm not even not enjoying it. To be, if I can put it in perspective, the biggest complaint I have about the episode is that it was so long again. Like, what is it with these hour-long shows that are now an hour and a half or 70 minutes? Preacher was the same way. It was more than an hour.
Yeah. No, in fact, I had to double check. I was like, wait, this isn't the finale, is it? And they're like, no, we're just going super long. Which, by the way, gives me another chance to go back and shake my fist at Sling TV. Like, if you're going to not give me a DVR option, you're going to make me show up for appointment viewing. Now, I know it's not your fault, Sling TV, but it's not cool for me to show up at 10 o'clock our appointed time to watch this episode and tune in to get a spoiler from the third act of the story because, whatever. Don't.
Yeah, I mean, that is also...
Because that just happens to be what's playing at that moment.
Of USA Network as well, yeah. I'm trying to find a look at last year. Sam Esmail wrote, directed episode 2, and it looks like he didn't direct anything until episode 7 and episode 10. So he did 3 episodes last year.
Maybe that was a good way to do it.
Maybe. Mark. All right, let's talk about Preacher, episode 9, also very dark. What did you think about, when I was looking at how long this episode was, I'm like, I like what they did with the gunslinger in hell because it helped really hammer home his story. And once I understood where he was, it was like, oh, okay, he's repeating that over and over and over, just like I just did.
Right. Well, and specifically, and by the way,
it took a while to make that point. That's all I'm saying.
That I think it needed to though, because
maybe
because number one, that was the best part of the episode. because they did a magic trick, and like all good magic tricks, they did the setup way before. So they by giving us like they could have introduced him in that and shown that loop over and over and over again and have that be the end. But instead, they took real estate that probably could have been used for other things in the currently occurring unfolding story of 3-4 episodes to place that vignette in completely standalone with no payoff. Like, you watch that whole vignette and you're like, why did that happen? They're not doing anything with it. By letting it simmer, they were able to pull the magic trick of fooling us into what we were seeing this time. It felt like what we were seeing was a recap, but while it was happening, I was like, man, if this is a recap, they're taking an awfully long time. I mean, are they pretty much showing us the whole damn thing again? Am I just rewatching stuff? And then they did it again and again and again. And then I don't know about you, but I had that dawning aha moment of like, oh my God, no, this is hell. Because I remember thinking like, hey man, this is getting unpleasant for me. I'm not enjoying this. And then I thought, who's really not enjoying it? That guy. I bet to him it's like, what?
Yeah,
and
that makes all the difference, because I didn't come to that realization. I wasn't paying close enough attention to get that. And so to me, I'm like, okay, I get that they're showing that he's probably running over this in his mind, because I'm still stuck with him like he's alive. And I'm like, I guess he's just sitting around in the bar remembering this over and over and torturing himself. And right there, I should have made the jump, right? Torture? Wait a minute.
Exactly,
this episode involves hell. And so on the one hand, I kind of disliked it while it was happening. But then once our friends show up and we realize, and immediately I'm like, oh, they were going to hell and this is who they're coming. It all collapsed and made perfect sense.
Yeah, so I did find it a little bit, I'll say odd. I'm going to assume that there's a reason for it, because so far the show hasn't done a lot of stuff unnecessarily, but they definitely, on 3 totally separate beats, went out of their way to show that the angel investigators are actually a couple of some kind of loving relationship, where it's like there's the moment when there's like an overreaction of like, give me 20 minutes with this guy, and then it's like, no, non-negotiable, you don't get to do that, and the other guy clearly would have been fine with it or whatever. Anyway, so there's that.
Well, I understand that to be the reason they're rebelling, because at one point in this episode they say, well, why don't you just call heaven and just explain? And they're like, well, then we would never be together again. Oh. And that is the one thing that is keeping them down this path, is like, we must stay together.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So yeah, it's a matter of definite like romance love that they're having. Love the bit with the angel hands. When Cassidy casually says, yeah, I can get you angel hands. No big deal. I'm like, how the hell is he going to find angel hands? And then we get to that moment, you're like, oh yeah, no, they got a lot of angel hands. It was great.
Yeah, no, that was when they go to the bathtub. I'm like, oh, angel hands. Of course they have angel hands.
I'm glad to see the return of the happy, funny Cassidy. And we're not there yet. He's obviously very, very damaged, and they're arguing about whether or not he took enough time to put him out or whatever. There's going to be some darkness there, but I'm glad to see that bromance coming back with Jesse and Cassidy. And I'm glad that Tulip just full on said, like, hey, so he's a vampire. This is a thing. Also, but whatever. And then
really need you to not freak out, okay? Because you freak out sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And then it was that was also, I don't want to say it's a magic trick, but I thought for sure the mayor would just be, we didn't hate the mayor, but they certainly, in that moment that Tulip, or what's her name? What's the
Chris?
Yeah,
no,
doesn't matter.
It does. It matters a lot, because she's a real person, not a TV character.
They did a good enough job of making us emotionally detached ourselves. Like his pain of being the unrequited love, whatever. It's like they made him a big enough of an asshole that when we, know he's getting eaten by Cassidy, it's like, it's fine. It's fine.
Emily,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Gambling Man in the chat says she straight up let the mayor die. She did more than that. She actively murdered him by luring him into a known trap.
That is the part that confused me. Is I didn't get the sense that she hated that guy that much, right? So,
or even that she was particularly fond of Cassidy, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. So I didn't understand why she would actually go to the trouble of luring him over there just to get him out of her life. Like, he was doing a nice thing. He was going and picking up the kids.
That's a pretty big leap that suddenly she turned into a murderer. Now that I think about it, that is weird.
Yeah. I mean, and it was premeditated.
Yeah.
Right? It was, you had to go through some hoops to make that happen.
Not only that, you had ample time to rethink your decision and ample time to call it off.
Right. And she could have had him come over there and then just been like, oh, I'm sorry, I was freaking out. It's not, so yeah, she just went, I mean, granted, I don't think that you ever looked at her and thought she was the 100% greatest person ever, right?
Sure. But she's flawed.
But she always tried.
Yeah.
She always tried to be the better person than even the preacher. So this is a big jump.
Yeah, interesting. I also had the realization that Preacher is I think my favorite show of the year. I think it's even better than this season of Game of Thrones. I think Game of Thrones largely just gave us a bunch of it was great fulfillment on promises that were made long ago, but I'm just racing with questions on the universe of Preacher and can't wait to get more every single moment.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on to Justified episode 2 of season 3. And this one is a different. It feels like we're in a little Monster of the Week situation now.
Yeah, but I feel like they're setting up stuff intentionally. We are continuing to see the universe built out with other characters with different superpowers and backgrounds. I did love the 1-2 punch of this moment. I love the fact that Raylan figured out what Vic Mandrell, Shane Mandrell. Wait,
Boyd Crowder.
Boyd Crowder, right? Figured out what Boyd is up to, but didn't even tip it to Boyd. Instead, he tells Boyd a story saying, "Oh, you know what? I realized when you were assaulting me, that was just your beating up on your old friend Raylan. Let me fix it, make it back." And then it's not until you find out that the other guy got put into solitary for that same night that you realize, oh, no, Raylan figured out the whole plan and took action to make sure that it didn't happen.
Yeah, and of course, nothing stops Boyd, so he figures out his own plan to get set into solitary, bribe guard, and get access to Dickie. Is this the end for Dickie?
No, I don't know. That's a real bummer because they had a chance to do something, but instead they really punted on that and be all like, "Oh, well, let's have an information." All that built up to just an information dump, setting up what'll be a new bad guy coming up next episode or whatever. That was a little bit disappointing for me.
Yeah, I did like the fact that we saw Raylan off his game. That he got beat. It took him an episode to figure out what was going on with Boyd. And so it takes him away from being like the guy who always shoots first and always wins.
Keep in mind, we only found out at the end of last episode the reason that Boyd was doing it. So he went half an episode before he had.
But Raylan usually figures stuff out before I do, right?
Sure. We'll see where it's going. I don't know. It was a fine episode. It was a great episode because we saw Art kicking 37 varieties of ass. We see him full on beat up somebody he's supposed to be protecting and witness protection, full on threaten to say, "Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna murder you," and then just write it off as paperwork. And I saw no hesitation, oh, this guy's been there and he's done this and he knows, or if he hasn't done it, it seems like he knows enough who have that he's not worried about repercussions at all.
No, and it sheds a new light on the dirt that Art has on Raylan and why Art is mad about it but hasn't done anything about it, because he knows what it's like out there, and he showed that in this episode for sure.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It's hinted that he's got skeletons in the closet, that he's had baggage, and he knows other people got stuff on him, I assume. Maybe that is just that uneasy constant stalemate in I don't know, being a cop. Crazy.
And I did like, for a Monster of the Week, the witness protection guy who tries to use witness protection as an advantage was an interesting twist. I liked following that storyline.
Yeah, no, I thought, again, just in general, every second art was, this is the best episode Art's ever been in.
It was the art episode.
Yeah.
And of course, we got introduced to a character who didn't actually play much of a part in the overall goings on of this, but his former associate, who now does the Witsex stuff, who was definitely Flirty McFlirtster until she saw him with Winona.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some chemistry there, and
yeah, there's a story that hasn't paid off there yet.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. Well, that is it for Spoilerin Time. Thanks everybody for watching or listening. And if you like what we do, please consider supporting us if you're willing on patreon.com/Cordkillers. We will spoil you next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.